2021. All right, Mark, I always like asking this first. Take it in whatever direction you'd like. But when you think back to your childhood, your interests, influences, what are some of the things that stand out to you?
Oh my goodness. My parents, just telling me to go for whatever I could dream of, getting me excited about learning and reading, being excited about sports, being really good at sports until about the seventh grade. um, just my friends, just growing up in Pittsburgh, just all the things that come together. I mean, that to make me who I am today.
Was your sport of choice from like an athletic standpoint basketball, or did you play a lot of sports? Or
I pretty much played everything. My best sport was baseball by a mile. I always made all-star teams, but basketball was my first choice, my first love. I mean, I was a junkie, watched it, played it, did all I could, and I was okay, like I said, up until about the seventh grade when everybody started growing a little bit more than I did.
do you remember what pushed you towards basketball and why that was the
No,
sport you
I
loved?
don't. I mean, I remember watching Dr. J as a little kid. I remember Earl the Pearl Monroe and Pete Maravich were kind of like my favorites, and Wilt Chamberlain. That's how old I am. But it's yeah, I just remember and just being glued to the TV when we'd get like those weekly basketball games. But because we didn't have an NBA team in Pittsburgh, it was more baseball and football and other in college sports. So I just didn't get to see it as much.
Do you remember when growing up you developed an entrepreneurial mindset?
Oh yeah, I was like 9 years old, 10 years old. I mean, at first, it started off, buying and selling baseball cards in the park down the street, down in Birdland, in Scott Township in Pittsburgh. I would, we like a lot of kids back then, we would flip cards to win cards and collect cards and, sit around and talk baseball cards all day, or play wiffle ball or wherever. And I would take the cards I had and I would repackage them and wrap them in newspaper and sell them, saying, okay, one of these has got a Pittsburgh Pirate in it. You might get Willie Stargell or Roberto Clemente, and make some money to buy more cards that way. So that was probably the very beginning.
And then I think I remember hearing something about a trash bag
Yeah,
story.
so that I was like 12, and I wanted a new pair of basketball shoes. And my dad was playing poker with his buddies, like they always did, and I'm sure they had a few too many, and I would go in there just to steal the donuts. And while they were in there playing, it was like, Dad, I want a new pair of basketball shoes. And like you said about everything, it was like, Mark, those shoes that you have on right now, they look like they're working pretty well. When you have your own job, you can buy whatever you want. I'm like, Dad, I'm 12 years old. I mean, how am I going to get a job? And then one of his buddies pipes up, who was probably sloshed too, and said, hey, I've got all these boxes of garbage bags at my house. Why don't you sell them in the neighborhood? And I was like, okay, why not? And, I would go to our neighbors, and it'd be like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, my name is Mark. Do you use garbage bags? And obviously the answer was always going to be yes. And I was a cute, chubby little kid, and it was like, $6 for a box of 100. And, when you're done with them, I'll come bring you some more. And I was probably had the world's first and only garbage bag route in the history of garbage bag routes. But I made a little bit of money, and I don't even remember if I actually got the shoes.
Do you think people can develop an entrepreneurial mindset, or is it just something you kind of have or you don't?
I think it's both. I think some people were just born that way, and I think that's just my mindset. Maybe there was something my parents did that triggered it. I don't know, but I think on the flip side, when you get really good at something, that's when you start thinking about ways to start a business around it. So if there's some skill you have that you feel really confident about, it may be a creative skill like painting, and you want to sell your paintings or your crafts, and you go on the Etsy. It may be, whatever, computer skills. It could be any number of different things. But I think when people really feel confident that they're really good at what they do, that's also a prompt for them to start thinking about a business, and often leads to success.
How do you feel like you've grown most as an entrepreneur?
Um, you know, in a lot of ways. As you get older, you see more, and you understand more, and and plus, as I made more money, the stress reduced, and so I went from, okay, I'm broke. How do I make enough to not be broke? To how do I make enough to maybe relax, and how do I make enough to maybe retire? How do I make enough maybe to do whatever I damn well please and not ever have to worry about money again? And, so you go through all these different stages, and so each step of the way, I think, I just try to get smarter. But I think the one thing that stayed with me the entire time and that really has given me a huge advantage, I think, is that I love to learn. There's no shortage of time that I'll spend learning new things, particularly as it applies to technology. And even now, with all the craziness going on, just learning how to deal better with people over the last couple of years, starting with the stuff that happened at the Mavs, that was just horrible and just horrible is, I guess, the only way to say it. I mean, I learned a lot more about myself, and I learned a lot more about how to deal with people and treat people, and hopefully that's resonating and showing some now going, through all the things that we're experiencing.
I'm glad you brought up learning because you're obviously involved in a lot of different areas. And I was curious if you don't mind expanding on that. How do you go about learning? What's the process when you really need to kind of dive in and familiarize yourself?
I find the time. I make the time. I make a point to read and learn hours a day. Maybe it's a book, maybe it's a video, maybe it's a Coursera class. But I'll give you the perfect example, artificial intelligence. I've been a tech geek for a long time, but AI is relatively new. It's only since the advent of a lot of these advanced processors that it became applicable to businesses. And so I realized that it was going to have a big impact. I read this book called The Master Algorithm, and I was like, oh, dang. I mean, if I don't really get a handle on this, and even though I don't know anything about it, if I don't get a handle on this, I'm not going to be able to compete. I'm not going to be relevant at all in business as we go forward. And so I dove in, not just reading that book, but all the books I can get my hands on, Rebooting AI and others, going on to Amazon AWS and taking machine learning tutorials, introduction to AI videos, introduction to neural networks, how to do a 3-layer neural network in JavaScript, just all these, taking a Python class, which is a programming language. Just, I had no choice. If I wanted to be competitive and I wanted to be able to invest in technology businesses successfully, I had to be able to know what was real and what wasn't, and how it impacted my companies and my investments. And it's in the Mavs in particular. I mean, now when you talk about analytics, when we first started, we were probably the first NBA team to have a full-time analytics person back in 2001 when I hired Wayne Winston, who was my stats prof at Indiana University. And just a quick story there, I took stats. It was graduate level stats. I snuck in as a freshman at IU, and I got an A in the class because the guy used sports analogies to teach stats, so it made it really easy. And then years later, right after I bought the Mavs in 2000, we were playing the Pacers in Indiana, and I had been watching Jeopardy, and my stats prof had been crushing it at Jeopardy. And then, boom, I hear my name being called from the stands in the Pacers-Mavs game, and I look up, and I swear I wouldn't have recognized him had I not just seen him on Jeopardy, but there's my old stats prof, Wayne Winston. And so I hired him to be our the first analytics person for the Mavs. And if you remember back like 2005, I think, when we fell down 2-0 to the Rockets and at home, and then went on to win the series by like 40 points, that's where we really learned to lean on him in analytics, because we made changes to our lineups back then that he drove. And so I know that's kind of a little sidetrack, but fast forward to 2017, and I'm like, okay, analytics in the NBA and across all of business is changing to be AI-driven, computer vision-driven, pose estimation and GANs and all these things that I have to understand, that I can't just defer, because otherwise I can't really have a conversation with our guys, or I can't know if they're just BSing me and don't know what they're talking about. And so, when it comes to learning, I had to put in the time, and fortunately I like it, and it was interesting to me and exciting, even as crazy as that sounds. And so, that's how I do it. And, it's just, I like to read. And I like to learn. And so I think for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, that is absolutely a key trait. Otherwise, you can't ever really control your own destiny.
It's funny because when I asked someone, a good friend of yours, in preparation for this conversation, they said you got to talk to Mark about AI, and it's something that he's passionate about, and you clearly just demonstrated that. And you talked about how you familiarize yourself with AI. Where do you think in the future AI is going to take us, and what will it allow us to do?
Um, that's a great question. There's a lot of external things that'll influence how far AI goes. Um, the speed of processors, the ability, the cost of that processing power in the cloud. But AI is the ability to take data and extract from it information you otherwise would not see, or have it tell you things you otherwise would not have considered. But it also starts to extend into, computer vision or neural networks, where computer vision, we're working on things with the Mavs where you can just throw in a video of a game and it tells you exactly what's going on. We're working at things with the Mavs with pose estimation in computer vision where it can, hopefully at some point, probably 3 years from now, 5 years from now, who knows, look at all the plays that any given team runs and come up with the best defense, literally showing the players and positioning them. It's what else? So talked about computer vision. It's robotics. Being able to, once we get manual dexterity in robots, just doing almost anything that is repetitive that a person can do, and just changing the game there in terms of how we compete in manufacturing with overseas manufacturers. So AI is going to touch everything. And if you're in business, small, medium, or large, and you don't have a grasp of it, you're going to be at a disadvantage.
You said something once, work like there's someone working 24 hours to take it all away from you. And I think the work ethic that you have is obviously a huge part of who you are and what you've been able to accomplish. Who were some of your early influences that helped you develop an understanding of the importance of work ethic?
I think my dad. My dad did upholstery on cars and worked almost every single day, 6 days a week. He'd be gone at 7:30 in the morning, and or earlier, and come back at 6 and exhausted. And he would bring me down to where he worked, Regency Products, and make me sweep the floor. And I was like, Dad, I don't want to sweep the floor. And he's like, exactly. I want you to know exactly what it takes to have to do physical work so that you don't ever want to do it. And I saw how hard he worked. And then after that, it's just the competitive side of me. Getting into business, or even the jobs I had, wanting to be good, wanting to kick everybody's ass and survive and excel. And, you can only do that by outworking people. And, you come to, there was a point early on in my career where I was always the youngest and people didn't take me seriously. So I had to walk in and show them that I knew what I was talking about. And that meant working harder and longer. I went 7 years without taking a vacation in my first company, Micro Solutions. And then even now, now I'm the older guy, and it's like, okay, if I want to be able to take some teenager or 20-something and show them that I know what I'm doing, I can't walk in and just, talk trash and not be able to back it up. And so, that work ethic comes from wanting to compete.
I'm just curious, Mark, who's someone you've come across who really impresses you?
I always used to look up to Ted Turner because he worked hard, was a great salesperson, always was looking one step ahead and around corners, and had fun doing it. He started basically started the cable industry, started the news industry when everybody thought he was crazy and there was no need. He won, sailing races. He bought the Braves and made himself manager, and he was just always had a bottle of champagne in his one hand and a cigar in the other. And, married Jane Fonda, who I, when I was a little kid had a crush on. And so just, that was somebody I always looked up to.
I'm curious, you've owned the Mavs now for multiple decades.
That's crazy.
Side story, I remember when I learned that there was this guy named Mark Cuban who bought my beloved Mavs. I was like 8 years old. I was in a bubble bath, I think.
Thanks a lot.
I was like, I think this could be good. I don't know. It can't be any worse than it's been, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
turned out
funny.
to be amazing. But
8-year-old in a bubble bath. That's good to know.
well, when you look back, what's been the toughest part of owning a team?
2006.
Just the competitiveness and everything that went into that.
Just losing, yeah, and how we lost. That was just brutal. I couldn't leave the house for at least a month, and I still get nauseous thinking about it. You know, someone asked me if I wanted to do a podcast reviewing the 2006 finals, and I was like, hell no. I don't ever want to see that again. And, yeah, it's still painful. Like if I see Dwayne Wade's name, it's still painful, right? I still get mad. And so, yeah, that was the worst.
How did you? I mean, obviously you were able to bounce back, even if it's still
You don't
a
have
bad
much
memory.
choice, do you?
Yeah. So was that kind of the mindset?
Yeah. I mean, look, there's always another season, and you always have, you know, big hopes. And you know, we started off the next season like 0-4, then went 67-11 the rest of the way, and then get knocked out by Nelly. You know, and so that was bad. But they actually had beaten us the multiple times in the regular season, so it wasn't as shocking as a lot of people made it seem. And obviously Nelly knew our personnel well. So, but yeah, that wasn't as painful as losing the finals. And then, you know, 2008, you know, 2009, when, you know, we moved on from Avery to Rick, you know, got Jason Kidd. That wasn't easy early on. I mean, there were a lot of warts and bumps and bruises, and then 2011 just happened, and it was magical, and that made everything better. That, you know, we had the Band-Aid ripped off the boo-boo, and the boo-boo healed.
I got a couple basketball questions, and I want to go back to just leadership and the other stuff that makes you who you are. But years ago, I remember Josh Childress left the NBA to go play in Greece.
Uh-huh.
And I love soccer, and I remember thinking, I wonder if the NBA basketball would ever get to a point where, much like soccer, they'd have interleague tournaments at some point, and you'd be able to see, you know, the you know, Barcelona or you know, a team in Israel or Greece. Do you think that would ever happen where there would be some sort of out of the regular season interleague competitions?
But who would we play? That's the question.
Well, I guess yeah,
you know, because it's so country driven over there, right? You know, so you've got Israeli leagues, you've got German leagues, you've got Italian leagues, and then they come together and play against each other, and you know, and that makes it a lot easier. And the distance obviously isn't all that much. Now, over the summer, I'd love to see it. I mean, I just think we've been dumber than a box of rocks by letting our best players go and play in the Olympics. I mean, the Olympics are not a nonprofit. If they were a nonprofit, I can understand. Play for your country, you know, represent your country, and this is, you know, not about money. It's about, you know, doing the right thing and doing what you believe in. Great. But the Olympics are all about money. It's a multi-billion-dollar operation that makes the Olympic organizations and their employees rich, you know, and scandal-driven rich. And so I always just thought that we should do what soccer does, which is, you know, 21 and under plays in the Olympics, and everybody else plays in the World Cup. That makes all the players and all the teams money. And we should be doing the exact same thing. And then you can start having a lot of fun with it. You could have a World Cup where Germany plays, you know, Japan or whoever, and, you know, the United States plays, and you do it the exact same way as the soccer World Cup. But the most important thing is not only is it entertaining, not only is it, you know, intense and gives you a different type of basketball, I guess, in some respects, but it also benefits financially the players and their families, and that just makes so much more sense to me. But, you know, I've been voted down for 20 years on that now.
So I was going to ask if you had any reason to believe that maybe this could happen, but it doesn't seem like people are...
You know what? I think everything now is starting to be on the table. You know, we have to get back this year, which hopefully we will, and then go from there. And, you know, if we play later into the summer, that kind of changes it. But that's the other thing. You know, if we play later into the summer, what do you do with the Olympics? You know, I'd vote against taking a break during the season for the Olympics like the NHL did. That didn't work for them. And so now maybe it makes more sense, since the Olympics, would happen in season for us, then we do our own World Cup.
All right, I want to get back to the entrepreneurial side, and maybe some of it includes the Mavericks, maybe it doesn't. But you've had a ton of experiences in a lot of different fields, and I imagine that conflict is just a part of work. You don't always agree with people. Sometimes it's more serious than others. How do you go about handling that conflict?
I mean, I did do it very well with the Mavs a few years ago. You learn. You do the best you can. You try to be as fair and honest. And the reality is, the way I did things when I ran day-to-day operations, for Micro Solutions or Broadcast.com, or shared those operations with my partners, was one thing. Now investing in hundreds of companies, more than 200 companies, and trying to support them and look for other investments and help other entrepreneurs, it's a little bit different. So I'm not facing the conflict as often as I used to. I mean, back in my first company, my partner Martin Whittle and I used to have knockdown, drag-out, screaming matches, about the way he wanted to do things and the way I wanted to do things. And fortunately, I won out. It paid off for both of us. And it really just depends on the company and my role in it. But when it was my baby, it was my way, because I was always on a mission, and it was like, we're speeding up and this is the way it goes. And, I would listen to people, but I pretty much had a vision that I wanted to fulfill. And, listening was more on the elements, the individual elements, as opposed to the macro things, the micro things as opposed to the macro things. And so, it just really depends on the company and whether you're running it. But, we all, what I've tried to do is learn and evolve and get better.
In your various roles, you have to handle a team, and I don't necessarily mean the team of players that we watch on the court 82 plus times a year, but just the team at large with the Mavs and other companies. What are your core values of leadership, and how do you go about handling and managing a team?
I just try to set an example that, there's not, if I ask you to do something, I'm willing to do the same job. And if I set a vision, I want to help you see the value to yourself in that vision. When it was Micro Solutions and Broadcast.com, everybody owned stock in the company. And so we all were on the same page. Now, they had to trust me that I was doing the right thing. And, fortunately, in both companies, we hardly had any turnover whatsoever. In one case with Micro Solutions, we were, one of the leaders in local area networks and custom applications, and, one of the biggest in the country at doing what we did. And with Broadcast.com, we started the streaming industry. And with HDNet, we were the first all high-definition television network. And so people who came to work for me, really understood the vision and where we were going, and bought in. And, when we sold all those companies, everybody made money. And so it was worthwhile for them.
One of, I guess, our mutual friends is Al Whitley, and I've gotten to know Al Whitley through the Legends the last couple of years, and I just think his story of how he started from the bottom and has risen is really cool, and I imagine it's one you'd appreciate. When you think of your time with Al, which is a couple decades long, what are the things that stand out to you about what he's been able to accomplish?
Well, just having him be Nash's buddy and starting off that way, right? And just, can you get him a job? It's one of my buddies from home, and sure, Big Al Pumpy, come on, get him a job. And, as just doing whatever, and just his personality and his willingness just to work hard and be part of a team and always have a positive attitude just kept him moving up the ladder. And, there's two types of people really, two types of employees, if you will. And there's people who create stress and people who reduce stress. Al Whitley is just one of those guys always who has reduced my stress. And if you're reducing my stress, I'm going to keep on moving you up the ladder, because I want you to do more and more, because that means less stress for me. And that's why Big Al Pumpy has always, gotten more and more responsibility. And now, as you know, he's running the Legends.
I got to ask you this. I guess when you moved to Dallas, you were in a rugby league, and
I played rugby, yeah.
okay. So what? How did you get introduced to rugby, and what were those experiences
So
like?
I started playing when I went to Indiana. I was like, okay, I need to do something physical here. I'd actually grown from high school a few inches and lost some weight, and so now, I wouldn't say I was athletic, but I was a lot. I was able to compete a lot better. Let's put it that way. And so I played basketball all day, every day, but I wanted to do something that was more contact driven. And I didn't really know anything about rugby, but I met some guy who had grown up in England, Dyke Drummond, who lived in my dorm, and he was like, "Come on, come play rugby with me." And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And so I went there and just started, and IU had a club team and played with them, and the club grew and grew and grew, and we would travel and play. And then when I graduated from Indiana, I went to Pittsburgh first and played for the Pittsburgh team, and we were really good. And that's when I was really at my best playing rugby, and it was fun. And I like to be physical and and just get the I didn't mind giving a beating or taking a beating as long as I could give a beating. And so I grew to really love the sport to this day. And then after I left Pittsburgh, I came down to Dallas and played for the Harlequins. And so that's when we were winning national championships and played there. And then as my business grew, it was a lot harder. And so I officially retired at the age of 33. And plus my hips were falling apart, so that led to it. But I still go back, and I've played old boys games. We had rugby reunions from my IU teams. And, yeah, so, rugby is certainly my second favorite sport after basketball.
So my family's South African, and my dad grew up playing, and he was a scrum half. And I watched with him. What position did you play?
So they tried to make me a second row, which I lasted about 2 games. There was no way I'm sticking my face in there. And so then I played wing forward, and then when I came down here, I played 8th man. I liked 8th man the best because I could pick up the ball and run with it. When you're wing forward, it's fun because I could get in there and chase the scrum half, and but I was mostly a wing forward.
All right, I got one more serious question and then one more light question. We've, we're in a time right now where a lot of people want to promote change, and it's all directed in a good way, but it's easier said than done. You've been a part of these types of movements before. What is important? What is key in trying to promote change and really make a difference?
I mean, the first step to change is realizing you need to change, and that was hard for me. Particularly with what's going on with the African American community. I always thought, I treat everybody the same. I am colorblind. And I learned when the Mavs went through the mess that we had that that's not the right way to do it, that, people have different perspectives, and I have to understand and recognize those differences, because if you don't recognize those differences, you're not going to be able to treat people equally. Treating people equally does not mean treating them the same. And I had to drill that into myself over and over because that was a big change for me, And so the first step is all of us, recognizing that, it's not working for the African American and minority community. When talking to players, talking to my, black friends I have, I was just talking to somebody the other day, and he's like, when I go out, and he's African American, I take my kids or I take a friend with me because if I'm with somebody, no one feels threatened. But if I'm, being black and by myself, it can feel the difference. People, evaluate him as a potential threat, and that's never happened to me. That's never happened to you. I have a 10-year-old son, and I don't have to have a conversation with him about if he gets pulled over by the police, when he's old enough to drive, or, like some of my black friends have to have with their sons. Here's what you do if you get pulled over by the police, because I always was raised, that the police were just a positive. There was no threat from the police. That's not what happens in the African American community, and we've seen, the implications of that. And so the first step is realizing that even if we think we're doing it right, let's reevaluate how we do it to see if we can do it better.
I remember a couple years ago, Delino DeShields, who used to play for the Rangers and is black, told me once that whenever he walks into a room, the first thing he does is to see if there are any black people and where they are. And we went into greater depth as to why and how that all evolved. But like that's never something I've ever felt the need to do.
Now, when you walk into a group of white friends, if you're with a group of your white friends and a white guy walks up, you immediately say, "Hey, come on, what's going on?" And you wonder. You don't really wonder, but you don't say, "Hey, there's a white guy." If you're with a bunch of your white friends and a black guy walks up, you're like, "Okay, who knows him?"
Yeah.
Is he supposed to be here? And I've done it. We've all done it, and that's where we've just got to, reevaluate and say, okay, we're doing it. We're not doing it as well as we can, and that's the first step. Recognizing that even if you think you're doing it right, maybe it's worth just reevaluating to see if you can do it better.
All right, last question, Mark, and this is not a racial question, but I want to ask about the white uniforms. For years, we would see white uniforms at home, and I don't know if I think I noticed it this year that the Mavs and really the rest of the league were going more to the non-white uniforms at home. What led to that?
They don't sell as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it.
That makes sense.
You know what? And I know there's a lot of uniform crazies out there on design. I have nothing to do with it. Now that you just mention it, that we haven't worn white, I'd never even thought about it. Not one time did it ever cross my mind. So, way to take the lead on the important subject, Jared.
There you go.